Hi everybody, I'm the Flying KLR, and I'm going to show you how to replace the stock rear spring on a 2009 KLR 650. The procedure is probably pretty much the same for any KLR, so watch and learn. Here's the stock spring. I got it out after multiple attempts of trying to use like McPherson strut spring compressors, and they're useless. Or the ones I have are useless. They were too big. I'm going to show you how to do it with a couple of ratchet straps. I found a guy on YouTube that did something similar. I'm going to show you how I did it. I'm putting it back together now, but the procedure is essentially the same. So the first thing you need is a couple of ratchet straps. This is one complete set. This is another complete set. To get this thing to stay on, what you want to do is have some sort of bolt that's going to go through here that will be enough to hold on to these two guys and the other two guys securely without popping off. I don't have a proper size bolt, but I've got this this kind of bolt pin with a couple of cotter pins. So I'm going to attach everything and then I'll show you what happens next. Okay, this is what it looks like once you've got everything attached. So you've got to put the pin, you got to get it through this guy, and this one doesn't really matter which way it's oriented, it's just the webbing. But then the ratcheting part, you want to make sure that the ratchet is going to be able to point out. Well, it's going to bend this way so that you can actually do the ratcheting back and forth. Same on this side. Put the webbing piece on and then have your ratchet piece on the outside, and again make sure it can ratchet back and forth properly. I've got a couple of cotter pins in here because if it's the small one, it pops off, and the big one is the wrong one for this, and it ends up just sliding out. So the whole point of this at this point is to get this collar back on in here. So we need to compress everything down like this so that the plastic housing here slides down, and then the rubber bump stop also pushes down a little bit, and then we can just kind of squeeze this collar through the shaft. It'll pop back up, then we release the tension, and Bob's your uncle. I'm going to make a little edit to this and see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll go back and try it again. What I've done is I've webbed it through the first ring. I've gone across to the second last one here. Then I've gone down to this guy, and then back up underneath to come out here. Now it's basically going to get attached to my ratchet like this, and it'll be ready for tugging it down. Okay, I'm obviously not going to do this with one hand, but just so you get an idea of once the webbing is in the ratchet, it's going to start coming together like that, and you can see it's already kind of closing the gap. Now for the other side. If you've never used ratchet straps and the webbing is confusing, don't worry about it. It's pretty easy to do. You just take your free end, loop it through the little notch or the cutout, bring it back around, and then just leave yourself enough of a distance so that when you start ratcheting it, it basically wraps around itself. Do not mock my cut-off shorts. It's really hot, and they're disposable. Stupid looking? Yes. Practical? Also yes. So in an effort to keep the tails out of the way, what you want to do is tip the shock upside down so that now you've got the bracket down at the bottom, and then the ratchets, it'll be easier to push them down than it will be to try and pull them up under pressure. So basically you want to do this with even strength. So, and that one feels a little bit looser, so we'll do that one. And remember, we're trying to get to the point where the spring's going to have enough space at the top here to put the collar back on. And now that I look at it, this side's definitely high, so I'm going to ratchet that one down on its own a couple more times. Okay, we've got the bump stop here at the top that you can see. The plastic is down there, so we move the bump stop out of the way a little bit. This one is filthy dirty and sticky, and I probably shouldn't be using this particular tool because I'm sure you don't want to scratch it. But at this point, I really do just want to get this stupid collar on. Okay, so with the bump stop out of the way, looks like we can just about get this collar back on. Might need it a couple more pumps. That should be lots. Get that collar in there. Now, the notch on the collar is supposed to be opposite the last piece of the coil. So we'll spin that around. This part's a little bit tricky because the spring is under immense pressure, as you can imagine. And so what we're going to need to do now is let go of the tension. And this is the part that's a little bit tricky, because what we're going to do is we're going to pop both of these at the same time, and we're going to have it so that the spring pops in evenly, because as you can see it's a little bit off-center. So this should be interesting. If I release Okay, well that worked easier than I thought. Yeah, you might have to give it a whack. I still have another whack left to go. So we'll loosen everything off here. Maybe. Take it out of the coil. Undo this guy. There you have it. This is the shock, and with the new spring on it. I should explain something about that too. Anyway, took all the webbing off, took that bolt out with the cotter pins, and I would recommend this method over spring compressors any day, because one of the things it doesn't do is it doesn't scratch your shiny new spring. This one, by the way, is from Top Gun. 7.4 kilogram per millimeter, I believe it is, and I'm really looking forward to trying it out. One tip you might consider is that when you are taking the old spring off, you might want to tighten this all the way up to 5 so that this whole collar drops down. You'll see the numbers 1, and then I think it is just 5, so different lines. That way the spring is compressed as much as it can be to start with. That way when you hook your ratchet straps up, you'll have less ratcheting to do. Essentially what you do is you ratchet it a little bit, and then you turn this clockwise again, and it'll snap back to 1, and you'll have already gained yourself a centimeter of compression. Now it's time to put her back in the bike.